COVID-19, Sierra Botanica and Collaborative Medicine's take on it. So it's COVID-19 / all of the things we've been talking about for literally, and by we I mean natural healthcare providers for forever. So here's what I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to say what I'm also not going to talk about. So I'm mostly going to talk about natural strategies, and what I mean by that is mostly natural strategies for prevention. And what I mean by that is things that I'm using and have been using, and things that I have been able to download from my peers and colleagues and teachers and mentors that I have a very privileged access to, largely seeing communications going back and forth between folks on the front lines, people all over the world, herbalists, physicians. So I'm not going to talk about hygiene because that's been talked about for the most part. Other than that, a couple things that a lot of people don't know about, probably, that deserve mention. Regarding the hygiene, if you can use soap and water, do that over the sanitizer stuff. If you can pay extra attention to shoes, it turns out that a lot of the disease burden, the viral load from folks coming, or the studies being done out of China, is actually on shoes. So another reason to take your shoes off before you go into your home, or here I am at my clinic, I might start asking my patients, who I'm still currently seeing, and which, by the way, part of the reason I'm a little late on posting this is because I've been fielding so many questions, email, texts, phone calls from patients I've had over the last 11 years, and I've been so busy fielding those that I haven't had time to formulate a good video or written response, which is here, by the way, and I'm going to post, and feel free to share. I am feeling privileged that I get to share this stuff with you, and it is my honor, and I feel somewhat experienced, but even more so lucky to be exposed to the information coming from folks that have been at this longer than my 11 years, and the cumulative total of all of these folks' knowledge. So mostly going to talk about natural medicine for prevention. Not going to talk about hygiene other than those two things. Oh, one last thing, hygiene-wise. Hygiene via not just hand washing, but toilets. A lot of the viral load is found sometimes in the same people, not in their oral upper respiratory sputum. Sometimes it's more often found in the fecal matter. So close the toilet lid. I, as a general practice, think that's a great idea anyway from a just feng shui standpoint. It's, as one of my teachers said, Leslie Koff, it's where the money goes, so close the lid, don't let the money and the good chi go out of your building. Close the lid. Not going to talk about economics of it. A couple interesting considerations I will briefly mention. Treatment-wise, I'm not really going to go into it for now. There's still a lot of information coming in. There is no one-size-fits-all, as Chinese medicine says. 10 different people with the same pathogen could present 10 different ways, and therefore should be treated 10 different ways because they present with a different pattern, even though they were all exposed to the same thing. So it's important to note. One last thing about treatment before I go into most of what I'm going to talk about is that hasn't been mentioned enough, I think, is ozone. I'm standing, or sitting as the case may be, in front of my own ozone machine I use here for the clinic, and I'm about to ozone myself here in a bit, and this can be done really easily via your ears, via a stethoscope. It can also be done rectally, takes a minute, fairly painless and easy, and it can also be done vaginally should you have a vagina. Let's move on, and I'm going to walk here. One more thing about treatment before I go into the prevention stuff, which I really want to talk about. Are nebulizers. I think generally speaking for upper respiratory diseases, be it bacterial, viral, or fungal, which is very common, nebulizers are underutilized, and I'm not talking about an inhaler, I'm talking about nebulizers. Saline is fine to use by itself. You can make your own saline. I'm sure there's videos online on how to make your own saline using some, not table salt, but sea salt and some water. Warm is nice. You can add herbs to this as well. But this is a nebulizer. So You put it on like that, it diffuses some nice steam. I mix in at a very measured, carefully measured concentrations, essential oils that are bronchodilating, anti-beastie, by that I mean antimicrobial. Usually these herbs are broad spectrum, so they cover fungi, they cover bacteria, they cover viruses. I have some ideas on that, but I'm really curious to hear from the Neb master himself, Dr. Kenneth Profrock. So that's all I'll say about nebulizers and treatment for now, be it for COVID-19 or other things, but just I would recommend these. Unfortunately, Amazon, which is where we get this one, is completely out, and they're really hard to find. We have a few here at the clinic. Let us know if you need one. I'm happy to help you use one. Okay, so one last thing I'll say about treatment. The International College of Integrative Medicine released a position statement on COVID-19. Dr. Ellie Campbell and other colleagues put this together. I'm fortunate enough to have Dr. Campbell as a personal friend and colleague and mentor. They did put awesome stuff on there. I'll put a link to it. Check it out. One small detail, they mentioned Andrographis, which is a great herb. It's actually on my shirt here. Thank you, Kevin Spellman. Andrographis is there. That's one of the chemical compounds from Andrographis. It is antiviral, but it really has more of a tropism for the liver, and it is very cold and drying, so I would not recommend that unless you really know what you're doing as an herbalist and you compound that with the right other herbs that are more warming and supportive for the chi and a little moistening. So not my first choice. It may be on the list, but way down there. So, and then rectal suppositories, I would also say, compounded with some essential oils, if you know what you're doing, I think would be very helpful, especially to target the bottom of the respiratory system, that is the bottom of the lungs. I have some ideas on there, but I am not going to share them until I talk to my expert aromatherapy essential oil colleagues. I've taken more than 10 hours of training on essential oils, but I don't consider myself an expert. Let's talk about some other herbs that I think are really helpful. Before I talk about herbs, zinc. I have all my patients on it, almost all my patients on it, because I measure blood levels, and usually they're low or suboptimal, let's say, but especially now because there is some really convincing evidence that it is a strong antiviral. Not all zincs are the same. Personally, I have a tummy that's very sensitive to zinc, and I've thrown up on zinc, especially on an empty stomach first thing in the morning. So if you have some supplemental zinc, do it with food and or not first thing in the morning. There's one that I really love. I'm not going to mention any brand names just yet anyway. You walk on the call or email and I'll tell you that is very easy to digest and doesn't cause stomach upset because they had, in this case, yeast eat up the zinc, and then you eat the capsule that is made up of the yeast that were saturated with zinc, and your stomach sees food and it absorbs it. Once it goes through over the moat into through the capsule wall, it opens up its payload and releases zinc. So depending on the brand, somewhere between 50 milligrams and 100 milligrams a day, I think is a great idea across the board for pretty much everyone. And those are most of the things I'm going to be talking about right now. Things that are great and safe for pretty much everyone. Zinc, again, is broad spectrum. It's cheap. We talked about dosing. Now, let's talk about some really cool new stuff I learned. There are some things called ionophores, which help, in this case, the absorption and utilization assimilation of zinc to go into your cells, which is what you want. There is a prescription drug called Plaquenil and hydrochloroquinolone, I think, and it is doing that. There is actually one study on 400 milligrams twice a day as initial load, and then 200 milligrams BID twice a day, that is, maintenance. If you have access to prescription for that, great. I happen to have some for myself here with me. But other ionophores that are not prescription. Quercetin. Also, by the way, the prescription one that I mentioned just a bit ago is in the same family of compounds that occurs naturally with quinine, aka originally isolated from the cinchona bark of the South American tree, used in what is now considered the gin and tonic. So if you find some stuff called Q-tonic, and I should have that, I'll show you there in a second, it has natural cinchona bark, which has the quinine, which is, in theory, going to do the same type of thing as the Plaquenil, which is a prescription drug which is often indicated for autoimmune diseases like lupus. So load up on your zinc, everyone. The next one that I highly, highly recommend is reishi. It is on my personal Sierra Botanica and Collaborative Medicine logo, which is this little alien looking thing there, but it is also, this grew in my yard. It has a white bottom, and the top kind of looks like that. So see, kind of it looks like that. So at least on the East Coast here in Atlanta, they grow kind of a lot. And so I'm not really worried about it becoming endangered. You can cut it up and then boil it. You can also make a double extract out of it. We have some that, since I don't have a whole lot of time to go into the woods and to harvest this stuff, I rely on friends and colleagues. I like the double extract. That means it's decocted and it was also extracted using alcohol. That way you get the triterpenes, which are more fat soluble. You get the polyphenols, which are more water soluble. We have that here as a tincture. Dosing wise, I recommend something in the order of 30 to 60 drops 2 or 3 times a day in water in your favorite beverage. I've been talking about on social media versions of my Quarantinis, which is a version that has tonic water, the real tonic water with quinine. It has reishi. It has some elder. That's another one that we have here at the clinic. It tastes delicious. You can put it on your pancakes. Yes, I am aware of the buzz that's been happening around the cytokine storm situation, and I have looked into that. I am not particularly concerned for most people in the early stages of disease, and especially prevention. If you are in a cytokine storm, you've been probably hospitalized and as a preventative. So basically, the cytokine storms only happen if you're really inflamed, and you know, the herbalist named Katya Swift made a really good analogy and example, saying roads don't cause traffic. Elderberry, in the same kind of vein, doesn't cause a cytokine storm. Rather, your body causes a cytokine storm, you know, when it's really far down the line of disease. So I feel good about elder, especially the flower. The leaf is used as well. The berry is delicious. It grows all over the place here in the South. So I just ordered several quarts more from one of my favorite people, Robin McGee, who harvests it. It makes delicious stuff that I just drink because it tastes delicious. So elder is another one that I really love. It's gentle. Saint Germain, by the way, is one way that you can drink this in a cocktail, which I will be posting my versions of the Quarantinis, if you will, on social media here soon. Vitamin C is another one. You can do it as an IV. If you don't have access to that, you can buy it at the store. My favorite versions are not made from GMO corn. They are reduced and highly potent. And if you want brand recommendations, call, email, or text us. Dosing wise, I recommend a vitamin C flush to determine your dosage, and then about half of the flush amount should be your daily amount, as Dr. Russell Jaffe recommends. Where else? Okay, so what else? Demulcents. Throat coat. So demulcent is something that soothes and keeps mucous membranes moist, which is really important with daily life, with aging, with upper respiratory infections of any type, be it bacterial, viral, or just when you talk a lot like I do and just need something to keep your throat moist, and that way it doesn't get irritated as easily and the beasties don't go down into your lungs as easily when your system is moist. Juicy and moist is good. So demulcents include throat coat is easily over the counter at most supermarkets. Licorice is a favorite of mine. It's an adaptogen. It helps your energy level. Slippery elm, althea, marshmallows. So this is some albina, which is a demulcent. We've got a bunch of licorice glycyrrhiza here that tastes great in teas, and I kind of recommend these almost to everyone. Yes, it can raise blood pressure, but trust me, I've tried raising blood pressure with it, and it generally, with almost everyone, when I'm trying to raise blood pressure, it takes a lot. How much? More than you're probably drinking. So there's that. And it tastes great in a cocktail, by the way, too. Astragalus, aka I like to say astragalus with Russian accent because it's fun to say. We have astragalus here in our apothecary. This is typically something that you decoct as in you boil for about an hour. We'd like to add some fresh ginger to that. How much? About a handful. That's going to be about 25 to 35 grams. We sometimes go up to 60 grams a day with our cancer patients. It's in the bean family. It's very safe. It's a great preventative for all kinds of things because it helps your immune system. That's a very generalistic way to say it, and I'm okay with that because I'm trying to blow through this. Probiotics. There's a lot more I could say about that. There's brands and strains and combinations that I like, but probably you're not going to go wrong with the probiotic unless you have pancreatic cancer, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. That's really bad, but almost everyone is probably going to do good with probiotics. There are some that are better than other ones. Call us to find out which ones we like for which occasion. There's not a blanket one that we like for everyone. Vitamin D levels above 70. I stress this for all my patients. I measure them for pretty much all my patients. If your vitamin D levels aren't above 70 now, you've a little bit missed the boat, but guess what? Start now. So 10,000 units a day with vitamin K and a little bit of vitamin A is what I recommend to most of my patients. A good friend of mine yesterday called me from California. It sounds like he is infected, in fact, with COVID-19. And I just said, what do you have? And just walk me to your pantry. He was in pretty bad shape. He's in the middle of the woods and he had some vitamin D. And I think there is good reason to suggest that as a therapeutic amount, going up to 100,000 units a day is not a bad thing for a few days, so long as you have a little vitamin K, which he did, and some vitamin A, which helps absorb that vitamin D. Speaking of which, vitamin A in and of itself has been shown to be antiviral in other occasions. There is no research as of I know now for COVID or corona type viruses, but it ain't gonna hurt you at 10, 20, 30, 50, 100,000 IUs for a short term, especially if you do that in divided doses with food. Most people. Vitamin A we talked about. Magnesium. The International Congress of Integrative Medicine, ICIM, does recommend this. They say a dose. I disagree with that dose. I think your dose should be to bowel tolerance. That's typically what I tell my patients. Slowly go up to bowel tolerance in divided doses. That is to say, start with a little bit in the morning, start with a little bit at night, do that for a couple days, and then do a little bit more at night, do that for a couple days, and a little bit more, and keep going up, titrating your dose up until you get loose stool, and then back off just a hair and then stay there every day. There's different types, but all of them work. Tremella. This is one that I just thought about today. Tremella is a white Chinese kind of wood ear fungus. It literally translates to that by Mu Er. It looks like this. And this stuff actually does grow in the woods, and it doesn't really taste like anything. I've made some desserts out of this. You just kind of just steam it or boil it, and then I sprinkle some maple syrup. They make children's candy out of this in China, but it is very gentle. It is a mushroom. It is, like all mushrooms, a prebiotic, which makes it kind of good for your internal microbiome, which in turn then helps your immune system. It probably helps the immune system in and of itself because it's a mushroom, and guess what? Research on mushrooms, on other mushrooms at least, maybe this one shows that they are also kind of antiviral in and of themselves, but this is basically food. You can eat a lot of this. Just cook it, drizzle some good stuff on there. I've drizzled some syrup made out of maple syrup and schizandra, and then served it with pears, which are really good for your lungs as well, since this affects the upper respiratory. It's white, and that kind of is metal in Chinese medicine. It affects the lungs. What else do we have on the Sierra Botanica and Collaborative Medicine list? Talk about magnesium, zinc, of course. Zinc and reishi are my top two. All right, we've gone through all the major ones. This next list is going to be secondary recommendations. So, St. John's wort, we like it as a tincture. We like it as a topical oil, or even a little bit of infused oil topically in with some food. Diffusing essential oils. I think it's a great idea. Are they going to kill viruses in the air and on your countertops? Who knows? Maybe not. But this isn't just about killing viruses. People are obviously freaking out everywhere, and anxiety is at an all-time high. No surprise, and your immune system doesn't really work that well when people are anxious and freaking out. So, maybe it doesn't kill all this stuff in your air and disinfect stuff, But hey, it smells really good and tends to really calm people down. There is actually some pretty good research on that. I recommend some frankincense and lavender, maybe some spike lavender, maybe a little citrus. Be careful with the citrus because it does go bad after a long time if you haven't used it. So we talked about diffusers, how they smell great. We talked a little bit about reishi. We talked about nebulizers, a little bit about St. John's wort topical, internal. I like it as a tea. A tincture works pretty well as well. Michael skullcap is very cold, but it deserves some mention. It is a root. You need to decoct it. My decocting machines are not quite set up yet, but hopefully they will be in a couple weeks for our patients here locally. Kudzu root grows all over the place here. This is some stuff that's already prepackaged, and it's kind of ridiculous that I buy and import this stuff from Japan, since it grows all over here, but here in the south, it's the vine that took over the south. It's the root, not the leaf. The flower has probably some mention as well, but in this case, it's the root. Deserves some mention in the formula. Bone set is a disgusting leaf that you can use that is great for fevers generally. This is not in the realm of prevention. I would reserve this for treatment. It works well. It tastes awful, but it works. It makes you sweat. That is one of the strategies as far as treatment goes in natural medicine. Sweat it out. Yarrow, kind of along the same lines. Doesn't taste as bad. Chinese medicine formulas, everyone is expecting me to talk about them. But like I said, this disease doesn't present the same with everyone. Yin Chao San, jade, windscreen, sure, they're low dose, at least with the Xiaoyao, they're the Yin Chao rather, probably fun to take every day. Jade windscreen, probably fun to take every day. They're not very specific, but that's fine. As far as treatment goes, treat the pattern. I've even seen a classic Chinese herbal formula called Da Chen Shi Tang used in very successful treatment of a case in China, which is used primarily for small bowel obstruction. We treated my mom and got her out of the hospital, avoided surgery entirely, and an 8-week recovery time. We walked out of the hospital simply because when she had a small bowel obstruction, they wanted to do full abdominal open surgery. We gave her an emergency version of this formula against the doctor's orders, but it cleared her up. So this is known as a digestive formula, but in this particular pattern for this particular gentleman in China, this was a real game changer. Another note about the morbidity, mortality risk, we're still kind of working on the numbers there, but one important thing to mention is in China, where this originally started, smoking is like 80% of the men in China smoke. So, and the 20% that don't probably kind of do anyway because air quality in China is abysmal. So important to keep in mind. So if you haven't stopped smoking, you know, one more reason. Now was a good day. And if you have, congratulations. That is a very big deal that deserves a big, awesome high five to you. We talked about diffusing essential oils to make the air smell nice. That is adding something to the air. I want to mention something also about air quality. Keep it clean. In my treatment room back there, we saw a HEPA filter behind me that I have running constantly. This is a new build out. We just moved in this weekend, haven't even been here a week. We're still unpacking stuff. This is my IQ Air. It's like a pretty fancy high-end thing that doesn't only filter out, you know, particles of things that are solid, they're very small. It also filters out gases, like outgassing from vinyl carpets, from paint, from all kinds of stuff that does mess with your immune system. In theory, it probably might even filter out a particle small enough as a virus. I'm not sure, but usually these things travel on dust, travel on sputum. It definitely does a good job with that. I highly recommend at least a HEPA filter, which you can buy at Goodwill for pretty cheap, or at Home Depot, Lowe's, or if you can afford it, get a couple of these guys in your home, because the dust, without the virus, ain't great for your lungs anyway. And really what we're seeing about the people who are dying from this are the people who are compromised because they're inhaling mold, which is on dust. They're inhaling plug-in air fresheners, which is impacting their lungs, or smoking. They have heart disease, they have cancer, they have diabetes. All the things that natural healthcare practitioners have been talking about forever are these same things, to just don't have them, and you should probably be fine even if you get it. So, that kind of covers most of what I had to say. I think there's some interesting considerations which I want to throw out there I don't have answers for. But I'm wondering, other than outliers, why are there no kids coming down with this? Interesting. And what is it about kids? Because they're mammals too, and humans, and what is it about them that makes them more immune? Is it their temperature? Is it they're outside more? I'm just curious. They're more active? It's just really weird to me. Why now? Why is this thing happening now? Climate phenomenon, temperature, atmospheric pressure, who knows? And then why not so much, again, other than kind of outliers in Africa and Central America? Interesting questions. Would love to hear your take on it. I also want to kind of back up a little bit and reiterate one of my teachers, Dr. Russell Jaffe, PhD, medical doctor, physician, really smart dude who's been around a very long time. Just the basic stuff he was recommending for his antiviral protocol, which is, by the way, the same stuff that all of us have been recommending forever as I work with cancer patients, autoimmune, whatever. It's the same kind of stuff. Stay well hydrated. No brainer. Not going to talk about that more. There's more to be said, but for now, that's good. pH, keep it good. First morning urine is fairly accurate. I know it's not the most accurate version of what your body's pH is, but is a pretty good marker of health. Keep it, 6.5 and above first thing in the morning. Number 3, get enough quality restorative sleep. So do whatever you got to do with herbs, acupuncture, massage, changing your lifestyle, getting the hygiene good, getting your TV out, getting your Wi-Fi out from underneath your bed, your cell phone from out underneath your pillow. Do whatever you got to do to get that good. A nice hot bath before going to sleep would be a very nice idea. A little Epsom salt is great. My friend out in California who looks like came down with this, I said, what else is around you? He didn't have a whole lot in his cabinet other than a tiny bit of Sambuca's elderberry and some vitamin D, which we kind of went high dose on. And I said, what's outside your house? He said, I'm in the woods, there's nothing. I said, well, what kind of trees? He said, there's tons of pine. Great, grab a bunch of pine needles, boil them up, throw them in the bathtub, and put a little Epsom salt in there and take a bath. It's an old-timey Southern Appalachian folk remedy for upper respiratory infections and fever. It was free for him. He had tons of pine trees, and he said it made him feel really well. He could breathe a lot better after inhaling that vapor from the pine needles. But a bath in general is really great for just helping you relax and take the pressure off. Hydrated, pH, sleep. Eat what you can digest, assimilate, and eliminate without immune burden. So don't eat stuff or be exposed to things that you are immunologically sensitive or allergic to. There's ways to sort that out. Let us know. We can help you do that with some functional testing. Air quality we talked about. Vitamin C he's kind of obsessed with, and we already talked about that too. Zinc, we talked about that as well. The ICIM, the International College of Integrative Medicine, we said release their position statement. I'll have a link to that as well as Dr. Jaffe's recommendations. The reason I'm doing this as an herbalist is I think I'm kind of qualified to say and do this largely because conventional medicine offers no treatment currently other than supportive care, respirator, so forth. Importantly, integrative physicians or clinicians, herbalists like myself and some of you, have a large armamentarium of preventive and treatment protocols which have been successfully used for other similar viruses, including for other strains of coronaviruses. We believe it is our obligation and privilege to share these with the community at large. So it is my privilege to share this with you, and I'm happy to do it. I will probably have more updates as information comes out, but I just wanted to post this out there for all the people that keep calling, texting, emailing, and for you guys to share and spread with your friends. Thanks, Oscar Sierra. Sierra Collaborative Medicine. Sierra Botanica and Collaborative Medicine. Getting ahead of myself.